Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Thank you for always watching and subscribing to the channel. Alright, without further ado, let's get into the news. Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney Democrats. Anyone who believes that Trump tried to devour democracy 2 years ago in January, he's very upset that Fox News will be releasing within the next couple of days or maybe even tonight. Definitely within the next couple of weeks, 41,000 hours of security footage, or at least hundreds of hours within the 41,000 hours. Okay. Why don't they want this footage? Why does Adam Kinzinger not want this footage released? Well, according to 538, Kinzinger voted alongside President Trump over 90% of the time in Congress. So when you watch him on CNN, now he's on CNNG, I wonder why. But when you watch the former congressman, it's an act. He doesn't truly believe that Trump is a menace to society, because he voted alongside Trump on bills, executive orders, resolutions in Congress, over 90% of the time. They differ on foreign policy, and they differ on a reverence or a worship of media. That's it. That's what Kinzinger and Cheney and Never Trump Republicans are all about. They want positive media coverage. They're gonna get, if they can serve as a foil to Trump, they will then get positive media coverage. They'll be deemed the good Republican who is not part of a Trump cult, even though they're the ones who have joined a very unhealthy paradigm of thought group cult. You can call the Democratic Party a lot of things. What it is a vote blue no matter who mentality, where every single publication is saying the same thing. And once and still almost half the electorate is voting for Trump. Why? Because they know that people like Kinzinger, Cheney, CNN, MSNBC, journalists out there are lying. They're lying because they're desperate to further a narrative that Trump tried to devour democracy. He tried to overthrow of the government. None of this is true. The security food shows that you have a situation where in many cases people were not only led in, possibly even coerced to go inside, possibly even confronted before they did anything wrong. There were potentially people there who were a part of the Democratic Party's narrative, trying to foment a certain outcome. This is according to Ted Cruz's interaction with the Federal Bureau of Investigation in Congress. There might be video footage showing this. They don't want any political operatives on the Democratic Party side that were perhaps there that day, possibly. On a Fox News Tucker Carlson segment, and they don't want that. What Kinzinger did was lie. He showed only part of the tree, was telling the truth, but only part of the truth. That's a lie by omission. What Cheney did was lie. She voted overnight, like 91+%. Kinzinger over 90% alongside Trump in Congress. Okay. The reason the break from Trump is not because he's not a good Republican or conservative. The break from Trump is it's the biggest grift of all time. How can we reposition ourselves as a good Republican, get positive media coverage, get hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars in booked deals, and CNN hosts CNN jobs or whatever? After we have voted for alongside Donald Trump for 4 years, they did so because his policies worked. We had record low poverty. He presided over the Doha Agreement, Abraham Accords peace, the first president, and stepped foot in North Korea. So why the sudden shift? Well, they were part of the January committee for a reason. Ken Kinzinger and Cheney were put there as the sole Republicans who, by the way, despise Trump. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of person votes alongside Trump over 90% of the time? Then rebrands remarketed rockets his image or her image as a person standing up to drawer, knowing very well he wasn't going to get indicted. They knew that he wasn't going to get indicted for trying to overthrow or devour democracy. They knew that. So what was the purpose of the January committee? What was the purpose of it other than to lie to the American people and show only certain footage that painted Trump supporters as maniacs? And by the way, it was a terrible day. And then this is some big news. Special counsel subpoenas Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner in Trump investigation. Special counsel Jack Smith has served Ivanka Trump and her husband Jared Kushner with subpoenas related to the ongoing investigation. However, it remains unclear what information Smith may seek from the pair, though both served as key advisors to the 45th president during his official tenure. Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed Smith to handle the DOJ investigations into Trump-related matters after he announced his campaign to return to office in 2024. Smith has since subpoenaed former Vice President Mike Pence, with indicated plans to fight the special counsel's demands. House progressives move to slash defense budget by $100 billion. House Democrats on Wednesday introduced a bill to cut the Department of Defense's budget by $100 billion amid an ongoing battle over raising the nation's debt ceiling. Democratic Representatives Barbara Lee and Mark Pocan this week reintroduced the People Over Pentagon Act to slash the defense budget. The Pentagon's total budget currently stands at $817 billion for 2023. Due to the passage of the National Defense Authorization Act, quote, more defense spending does not guarantee safety. But it does guarantee that the military-industrial complex will continue to get richer. Poca said of the bill. Lee contended in a press release that funds sent to the Pentagon are often, quote, mismanaged, and added that, quote, just $100 billion could do so much good, before pointing to alternative projects that might benefit from the money. Quote, year after year, this country pours billions into our already astronomical defense budget without stopping to question whether the additional funding is actually making us safer. Lee said the proposal from the House progressives is unlikely to secure passage as Republicans. The bill, however, comes amid an ongoing dispute between the major parties over raising the debt ceiling, whereas Democrats have advocated for a clean increase in the nation's spending limit. Republicans have sought to match any increase in the total limit with spending cuts or other measures to address the growing national debt. They have, however, expressed aversion to cutting defense funds. State Department gives $41,000 to charity that partners with terrorists. The State Department is funding a project to train Palestinian journalists that will be carried out by a charity that has partnered with terrorist groups. According to Grant records, the State Department gave $41,000 last September to Faris al-Rab, an organization based in the Gaza Strip that has a history of partnering with the Hamas government. The money is for the organization to launch a 15-month training program that will, quote, target employed and unemployed journalists, and focused on, quote, developing the Palestinian journalists' English language skills. The grant documents say the charity has openly worked with the Hamas government as recently as 2021 on a housing project, and regularly works with a terrorist organization and others on projects. The organization gave its media award to a radio network run by the Islamic Jihad movement. A self-described journalist who belonged to the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine hosted a press freedom event that featured a spokesman for Islamic Jihad and Colette, a human rights training course with a convicted terrorist. The group has also criticized Israel as a regime supports a boycott campaigns against the Jewish state and signed on to a petition that calls on the United Nations to, quote, uncover the terrorist face of Israel. The group also has a history of partnering with media figures linked to terror organizations. A spokeswoman for Affairs al-Arab explained that, quote, the group's views on Israel will not be a part of the media training program. Program participants will be selected in partnership with the project's management staff in the U.S. Department of State. She said the group's association with terrorist groups and history of anti-Israel activism are raising concerns among lawmakers. The Israel Defense Forces has warned that terror groups use, quote, journalism as a cover for terrorism, with Hamas reportedly employing operatives as cameramen and operating out of media buildings in 2015. An Israeli soldier was stabbed and wounded by a terrorist posing as a photographer and wearing a yellow press vest. Quote, it's no surprise that the Biden State Department is funding groups committed to inciting violence against Israel and waging economic warfare against our Israeli allies. Senator Ted Cruz said he continues, quote, Biden officials have been taking money that Congress allocated for programs and is surreal, aimed at coexisting and integration, and instead poured them into Hamas-controlled areas. Cruz said the State Department officials, quote, regularly refuse to disclose the groups and locations for their grants and have even actively entered false information to shield them from congressional and public scrutiny. The United States pledges consequences for China if it provides military aid to Russia. The United States is prepared to impose consequences on China's communist regime, should it provide lethal military aid to Russia for the ongoing war in Ukraine. State Department spokesperson Ned Price during a February 22 press briefing said that the regime would not escape sanctions if it attempted to further assist Russia's conquest. Quote, we have been clear with the People's Republic of China, the consequences would be for them if they were to provide lethal assistance, Price said. Quote, we have been clear we will not hesitate to target Chinese companies or individual who violate sanctions. Price has been careful to know, however, that the United States did not believe such support had yet been delivered, and that it was working earnestly to deter such an eventuality. Quote, "We have not yet seen the PRC provide Russia with lethal aid," Price said, "but we don't believe they've taken it off the table either." Price said that the CCP's willingness to bolster China's economy and spread Kremlin propaganda internationally demonstrated a growing alliance between the two authoritarian powers and that China and Russia were increasingly striving to erode the rules-based international order. Quote, "We are concerned because these two countries share a vision. They are an intent to Price that it continues." Quote, "It's not a vision of a rules-based order, have a liberal order of democracies living peacefully side by side. It is not a vision that harkens back to a previous era, an era in which big countries would believe small countries, borders would be drawn by force, an era in which might could be made right." To that end, Price said that the Biden administration believed the CCP was underestimating the resolve of the international community to strike back at threats and that its leadership was miscalculating how sorely it would be harmed if it should move forward with providing aid to Russia. Biden administration looks to repeal religious protection for students. The Biden administration is preparing to revoke a Trump-era religious protection for university students, calling the rule, quote, "unduly burdensome." The Department of Education announced this week that is proposing to rescind the religious freedom sanction of the 2019 executive order, quote, "improving free inquiry, transparency and accountability at colleges and universities," which requires a federal departments to ensure that colleges receiving federal grants promote free inquiry consistent with the First Amendment. If the Education Department revokes the rule, the agency will delegate cases of religious discrimination by universities to the courts, rather than threaten to pull grants from the institutions of higher education. The executive order, quote, "caused confusion about schools and non-discrimination requirements and is unduly burdensome for the department," said Assistant Secretary for Post-Secondary Education. The department insisted that with the existing First Amendment protections, the executive order was unnecessary to prevent religious discrimination. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. If you're up for it, I'm gonna get back to work. Thanks for watching.